And welcome to another episode of Patriots No Huddle. Derek Haven, Steve Balistrieri, Mike Dussault. Today we have Patriots.com's Mike Dussault, great friend of the show. We've known him for a long time. Always great to have him on. Deuce, how we doing, man?
I'm doing great. I'm kind of in the sweet spot right now where the draft is over and we have, some practices here over the next couple months, but for the most part I feel like this is when you got to charge up your batteries and,
Yeah,
get ready for the grind of the football season, which I love, but you got to be smart about it. So I like this time of year when I can just kind of focus on the new draft picks they got, check out some OTA practices, but for the most part gearing up for training camp in a couple months.
100%. I have to start off with, the obviously just your reaction of the Patriots draft class. I would say overall has been, I would say both regionally and nationally graded pretty high. Will Campbell was not a surprise. Seemed like that was the guy they were going to go all along. Every single time he opens his mouth, I feel like I think he's getting more and more beloved by the region. We'll see if it translates to his play on the field. What were your thoughts on Will Campbell and then just the draft class as a whole?
I'd say it just made sense. I think that's probably the easiest way to sum it up. There weren't a lot of picks outside off the beaten path. I'd say really maybe just Craig Woodson was the only one that was a little bit like, all right, I think I
Yeah,
see it, but the only one that wasn't like, all right, you need a left tackle, you took a left tackle. It's a great running back class. I think there was some debate, and I think the way I missed on this draft class was, oh, it's such a big running back class. We can, wait till later, maybe pick up one of those guys that can fill a role. But they approached it a little differently. They went and got Henderson, who, admittedly, I kind of glossed over a little bit. I'm like, oh, he's going to go too high. We got other things to worry about. But, when you look at the impact that he could potentially make, I think it makes a lot of sense, especially, Ramondre coming off some questions last year. What's the long-term outlook at that position? And, just go right down the line. Otherwise, Kyle Williams wanted a guy with speed, got a guy with speed, needed some depth on the defensive line. I think they got it. If you listen to the draft shows that we did, the only question I had was, when are you going to hit the edge? And I think they got good value with Swinson. I
yep.
maybe swapped out running back for edge, looking at thinking like that's what they should have done. Maybe that would, my opinion going in was like, all right, let's get, one of these really high end edges. And it is a deep class, but they went with the running back. So I don't really have a lot of complaints. I know Swinson was good value. So, overall, just the kicker, the long snapper, plug everybody in, you see how it all fits. And I think that's what, to me, after so many years of drafts where there are always a pick or two that you're like, what, who, what, him, there, now,
Yep.
that just none of those head scratchers this year. It all pretty much made sense.
Farmer and Swinson to me were just amazing value. Steve and Mike will tell you that I was on Henderson. I just kind of felt it as soon as they made the McDaniels hire, and there was just something that clicked for me where I was like, this guy is perfectly made for this offense. The way he can run routes, the way he can catch the ball, gives explosiveness. And then you talk about his ability to pass block, and obviously, just how he excels in pass protection. And McDaniel's coming from Belichick's tree, just figure like, he puts a premium on that kind of stuff. So that made sense. But I was with you on the edge thing. I know you're a big front seven guy anyway, so you have your biases. But
We all do.
uh, Steve, what about you, man?
Yeah, Mike, I want to jump forward just a little bit. I mean, rookie minicamp was this week, um, ended yesterday. I saw where Mike Vrabel was so involved with everything there. I mean, it, I just love seeing that. I love hearing about it. I know the young guys loved it as well. Were you there for the rookie minicamp, and what was your impressions of Vrabel?
That was the biggest one, Steve. I mean, I literally I had to call my dad afterwards. I always, update my dad. He lives down in Florida too. So I always give him the inside information since I can't really tell many people the things I know, but not that this was inside information, but I just was so impressed with him. And look, I loved Mike Vrabel as a player. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you saw him as what he meant to this team in the 2000s. And, I would say he embodied what that Patriot way thing is, just a guy that came from somewhere where he wasn't having a huge role and became really one of the defining players. Seeing him coach, it was like, this is a guy who is doing what he is supposed to do. I mean, you can tell his passion for it. And I mean, he said it all the right things all along, just saying, you know, we're trying to get to know players as people. And I think you guys probably saw the clip. Like, if it's important to you, it's important to us. You know, he's saying all those right things. And it just, when you see him on the field, the way he goes right from Will Campbell locking up with Will Campbell to going with some tryout player and coaching them with the same kind of energy. So to me, you know, it's great to see some guys in pads, and you definitely get a little excited, like, oh, you know, we're starting to check boxes as we build towards the season. But it's hard to really analyze, like, oh, you know, how did Will Campbell look, you know, learning how to, you know, dry block. It's just, there's no way you can come away with like takeaways other than just Mike Vrabel being super passionate, jumping in. I mean, he hopped in at one point. They were doing on 7-on-7s. He's got the pullover. He's an inside linebacker. I'm like, this looks like 2005 all of a sudden again. But I would just say, last point on this is, like, this team will be imprinted with Mike Vrabel and his personality. He is hands-on as they come. I mean, I've been doing this now this is my third head coach to see nothing like this before. Just it's really cool to watch, and you can see the passion he has and how it's going to rub off on all these players.
Awesome. Yeah, and in fact, I'm sure your dad was happy to hear that. I remember meeting your dad at training camp one year. Yeah, we sat there for a bit and we're shooting the breeze, and so he has to be pretty excited for that too.
For sure. I mean, that's, you know, and I'm a huge fan of just coaching in general. I have a lot of respect for people who try to do it. It's so hard to do. And you can tell this is what Mike Vrabel's meant to do. I think we all would have said that when we were watching him during the dynasty days there, you know, in 2004, of like watching him score touchdowns and sacks and Super Bowls, and that's what he's supposed to do. But he's just such a passionate coach. You can see it jumps right off the field, and everybody wrote about it. I mean, you can tell it made an impression on everybody that was there.
Mike, what about you, man? What do you got?
Yeah, Mike, I think it's so great that you're saying about the enthusiasm that Mike Vrabel is bringing to the table and that new energy that's being infused into this team. And I think you're already seeing it in this rookie class. And we're hearing a lot about how these rookies are coming in, and they're already kind of adapting that mantra, you know, work hard, one day at a time, give it everything you got, but also keeping your eye on the prize. And I noticed over the weekend and reading a lot about what went on at camp with Kyle Williams. And Kyle is someone that is coming in with a lot of confidence, but he's also coming in, I think, with a temperance in terms of what he's going to be able to do in this uniform right off the bat and moving forward. The one thing that I really loved hearing him say was that he wants to be elite. He wants to take it one day at a time, and he wants to work hard, but he wants to be elite. And that reminded me of like a Mike Vrabel type thing to say. When you look at his play on the field and you look at what this kid can do, obviously tremendous route runner, someone that can stretch the defense, someone obviously that, you know, can be, someone that can cause problems for front seveners because he's got that start and stop ability to be able to make them miss. Do you see elite in this kid, not just in the skill set he brings to the table, but in the attitude he's bringing to this team as well?
Yeah, I wrote a profile on Kyle Williams, so I had a chance to speak with both his high school coach as well as his receivers coach at Washington State. And everybody that I've talked to about Kyle Williams just loves the kid, just falls in love with his personality. And I mean, of course, you throw on the tape, there's plenty to fall in love with there. I was so excited they picked him. He was, one of my, we do our big board stuff. He was one of my guys. We talked a lot on that second day of the draft, mentioning his name as, you looked at the depth chart with the receivers going into the draft. And I mean, I think we probably all had the same conversations where it's like, yeah, they got a lot of guys, but do they have a guy? They have a lot of role fillers, that kind of thing. And for me going into this draft, knowing what this class looked like, I just wanted to add speed. I wanted to add a guy that could add that element, which is exactly what Kyle Williams is going to add to this team. His ability to get off the line, his quickness. I don't need a big size guy. I don't need the contested catch guys. I mean, those guys drive me crazy when people are like, oh, he's really big, he'll go down the field and jump up and grab it. I want speed on this team. I want speed for the receiver room. And so it just feels like Kyle Williams is a perfect kind of fit between personality, between traits that he's going to bring to this room. And you could see it a little bit. And again, I don't want to overreact to like what they were doing on rookie minicamp, because I mean, again, It's just guys running around in underwear, basically. But you can see the movement skills, and he's at the front of the line for drills and all those things that you would want to expect. So I'm really excited about him, and I would say the same thing about Henderson. Like, I just think we all can agree this offense needed explosiveness, and
100%.
Two young rookies that can bring explosiveness and maybe bring some big playability.
You just took the words right out of my mouth. Those two players added explosiveness to this offense, which was, they were desperate for it. I mean, it's like what are you gonna? I think Drake May showed, at least in his first season, that maybe that he has some pretty good promise. I think we all like him. But what is going to keep your opposing defensive coordinators up at night? And the explosiveness and the ability to kind of get around those pursuit angles for Kyle Williams and Henderson, I think, is something that adds a little bit of value there. So that's cool. We got the schedule release coming up. What was it, Wednesday, I believe, the 14th. And is there anything? I mean, I don't know if there's anything that you're kind of looking for when we talk about the schedule, besides the bye week, obviously, for your reasons, as Paul would call a red zone Sunday.
Right. I know. I feel bad at this point now, where it's actually the job. It's like it's all work reasons of like, all right, what holidays am I going to have to work?
Seriously. But for real, that sucks though for the players and for you guys.
Yeah. Oh, and that's really, I mean, that's the first thing. It's just, what's the rhythm? Where's the bye week a little bit? For me, I always bang the drum of the division. I mean, that's where the road to the playoffs go. How do the Patriots stack up this year with this, Jets team that's getting remade? Is, the Bills kind of rejiggered things on the fly last year a little bit. They still look really good. Miami is always that question mark. So those three teams are always my biggest focus initially. And, certainly this year, not a murderer's row by any means of opponents. You got to go to Cincy. You got to go to Baltimore. You'll see Pittsburgh here. There are some quality teams in there, but for the most part, to me, the most interesting, part of the schedule this year is going to be playing it and just seeing how this team stacks up as Vrabel said. And I think that's just a big key for me is, can they take advantage of bad football? They should have plenty of opportunity to take advantage of bad football this year. And, seeing how they're already preparing, the kind of tone that they're setting, this should be a fast, aggressive team. And hopefully they can just avoid those mistakes. Just last thing I would say, my big thing going into the season with Drake is just cutting down on the turnovers. And, is he a killer? There's so many players that are very good out there, very good quarterbacks out there, Justin Herbert, but do you have it at the end when the game's on the line? That's what makes these guys special and makes them stand out. There's so many good quarterbacks now. I hope that Drake May is able to be one of those clutch players that can win games when they're on the line at the end.
Yeah, certainly well said. Steve, back up to you, buddy.
Yeah, my next question involves an undrafted free agent, a guy I was really hoping to see drafted by the Patriots in the later rounds, and that's the big tight end from Alabama, CJ Dippy. I mean, I watched him play down there. I think he's a really good blocker. I think he's kind of underrated a little bit because they didn't use him a lot in the passing game, but I could see where he could make this team. You have any thoughts on him so far?
I know it's funny, Steve. It's like we got to this point where all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, a tight end who can block? Like what? we could have use for that. I mean, not everybody's got to be 6'2", 230, and can't fly. Can't go at the Y. But I think that's the role. I look at it every year like you guys do. Of is there a place for a third tight end who's just going to be a blocker, or is that better served with someone like Caden Wallace, and who's not going to offer you really any threat in the passing game, but maybe somebody like Dippy would bring a little bit of threat there. I wonder how it's all going to play out. I wonder how Jaheim Bell is going to stack up. Vrabel mentioned Jack Westover, another guy last year who was around, who didn't really get much opportunity, but young, hungry kind of guy. But again, he's more of a move tight end type. So I just think it's funny that you find these tight ends who can actually block and, weigh 250 plus. And there is always that element that, I almost connected to a little bit to, like you were saying, Derek, about the running back, where, is Josh going to continue to stick with these roles of, all right, well, here comes James White, I guess it's going to be a pass. Oh, or, is it going to, it felt like in the recent years, they've gotten like, we just want to run Ramondre out there or Gibson, and it could be run or pass. It doesn't matter. We're not going to have that third down pass anymore. And it feels like Henderson could be that guy still too, who's balanced like that. So I'm not sure if they're looking more for, we need all around guys, but I think if they're looking for a specific role guy, yeah, he should have a chance for sure. One other one I just throw in the mix, Elijah Ponder. You guys know me, front seven, but to get somebody who maybe had a draftable grade on him into a thin edge group, I think my biggest concern right now is just, if Harold Landry were to go down, I think it'd be pretty major injury for them to try to overcome. So I'm just trying to pad the depth there. I know there's some veterans out there. I think Clowney just got released. I'd take him. Sorry, I'm bouncing all over the place here right now. You can tell I'm trying to gather my thoughts for this
I think
season.
Judon is still out there.
Judon's still out,
I was wondering
I
if
wouldn't
there
be
could be a
opposed to it.
reunion. I was wondering if there could be a potential reunion there.
Yeah, I would wonder about the Vrabel of it all. I mean, it seems like Matthew Judon is a personality, and Vrabel seems very intent on his guys, and I don't know. It could work. I'd be happy with it, but I know that he had good success working with Clowney a little bit when he was down in Houston, so maybe there's a little bit more of a relationship there. I don't know, but I'd be on board with that kind of veteran signing along the defensive edge.
Mike, I'm going to go to you next, but Deuce, you just said something that was kind of interesting because you said that Vrabel's about like kind of his guys, right? And we've been talking on the show about, I think there was no surprise. It seems like all the captains of last year, you're just seeing them slowly axed out. Do you think Peppers makes this team? Because he's the last one standing.
I know. Well, I love me some Jabril Peppers on the field. I think the thing that's saving Jabril Peppers right now is just that he plays that way, man. He plays hair on fire. I mean, talking to some of the coaches, specifically, we met with the defensive coaches a couple weeks ago, and I asked Scott Booker, the safeties coach, who I'd also just say, I know everyone's talking about how impressed they were with Vrabel during that game. I'm really impressed with Scott Booker. He seemed on the back end like he was running the show. He knew what he was looking for. He was, yelling at guys, not like yelling at, but, moving guys around. He also made a big impression on me, but he said the thing that stands out with Pep is the violence. And I think that's the word that every defensive coach you talk to, violence, sustained violence.
Vrabel mentioned it at his press conference.
You just keep hearing that word over and over again. And anybody who's seen Jabril Peppers knows he plays with a kind of violent edge that's a throwback to the Rodney Harrisons of the world. So I think that's something that could keep him on the roster. I mean, Pep, I feel for him. He got thrown off again last year. It feels like he just keeps getting to that point where it feels like he's over injuries and over the off the field stuff and able to just focus on football. And, last year it felt like he was building, and then that whole season got submarine. So I'm hoping that he can stick around, because I just think he does. He plays with an edge, and he's got some talent that's hard to find, I think. And it's just that edge. There aren't guys that play like that anymore.
Mike, over to you, man.
Yeah, Mike, I want to switch gears for a minute here to free agency, and a subject that definitely is right in your wheelhouse, front seven. Obviously, the crown jewel of the free agency class, Milton Williams coming over from the Philadelphia Eagles, coming off a career-high 40 quarterback pressures last year. That was 4 more than he had in the previous 2 years, so we know this kid is clearly on the upswing. Played 47.8% of the defensive snaps for Philly last year. That was a career high. So technically, we're really dealing with untapped potential in terms of Milton being an every down type player. And I know a lot of people are expecting a lot out of him this year. We saw him step up really big when the spotlight was brightest in the Super Bowl, had a tremendous game against the Kansas City Chiefs. From what you're hearing around the team, what's the vibe surrounding Milton Williams? And do you think the best is yet to come for this kid in the Patriots uniform?
I think so. I mean, I think there's a happy medium, though. I know some people look, back to Vrabel's time in Tennessee and how he used Jeffrey Simmons. I know even Vrabel himself has said, I hope you're ready to play more than 48% of the snaps, like you said. But I don't know if that necessarily means he has to be that 95% snap guy. I think that Barmore, from the looks of it, just from the pictures I see him, just like you do, that he is here at the, participating in the program. So I like having that extra depth. You bring in Farmer, you have Tonga as well. I think they've got some good depth there. And I don't see them now, with having some of the depth that they have, is having to be as reliant on Milton Williams, trying to keep him fresh, I think we're all very excited of the thought of third downs having Barmore and Williams next to each other, and having them just collapse the middle of that pocket. So I think hopefully they're not going to ask too much of him, which raises injury risks and all that, but play him enough that he's still able to really dominate, but not get worn out where we need to play every single snap. That's what is appealing to me about Farmer. Maybe if he's able to develop, hard to rely on day 3 guys to step in and really be part of a rotation. But I am intrigued by his size and his skills. Kind of player that I felt like they needed to add into that rotation just to pad it up a little bit. But I'm excited for good things. I think Williams and Barmore, those two together, they should cause some havoc.
Absolutely. And just from what coming off of what you said, Patriots struggled so much in that area last year. 31st in pressure on first and second downs last year. They clearly needed to infuse some aggression, some athleticism, and especially with the type of defense that Jabril Williams and Mike Vrabel want to run here in New England. Yeah, I think this is a great fit. So awesome stuff on Williams. I, for one, can't wait to see what this kid can do.
Yeah, so some interesting, just to go off of that though, your first and second down number. I mean, we've talked a little bit about that around here. Was just, I think in the past we saw so much two gap, and especially early on, where those guys they're setting the wall right off this. So if you want to pass on the Patriots on early downs especially when they have base personnel in the past, you could assume that you're going to have a little bit of time. They're not coming right off the snap, and I think now it's going to change. It's going to be a lot different than what we've seen. There's not going to be as much of that two gapping stuff. They're going to have guys like Milton Williams and Christian Barmore getting off the snap, getting upfield, not trying to hold their ground. I think that might play. Well, not might. I mean, it definitely will play into those two players' strengths. So I'd look for those numbers to go down. I'd just say they got enough juice off the edge. That's the question. I mean, I know they'll run stunts in games, and that'll get Landry and Chase onto the quarterback a little bit. We had an opportunity to sit down with Chase on a couple of weeks ago, and even he said last year, yeah, I was productive last year, but I was going across from Max Crosby. So again, harp on a little bit. If I have my little bit of concern, it's just the edge position. They got enough juice there. I think they'll have enough push in the middle. But are they going to have guys with athleticism to get around the edge?
Yeah, good point.
Are you part of the Hall of Fame committee or no?
No. That's a Perillo thing. Perillo and Fred.
Yeah. I know how much Paul loves it.
Yeah, and you need to put a bug in his ear about Russ Francis.
I was just wondering, of the candidates, was Edelman? Are you really? I mean, let's be honest. I feel like we probably agree on this.
Yeah.
I don't think the Edelman thing is surprising. I would have gone Adam Vinatieri if if it was me, just by like an order of how it should be done. But I mean, obviously, I think they're all deserving. Do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and I think people of our age who, I think I got a bunch of the 80s and 90s Patriots too. So what Adam Vinatieri did, I think it's. If you live through it, you can't just sweep that under the rug. Now, that said, of course, Julian Edelman is the player of the new generation, and he's got a podcast and he's got a following. And, so I think the way it's set up, of course, it seems like, and that's a great point too. I mean, that, as much as I'm making a point about just like he's so plugged in and popular right now that he can snap his fingers and get 500 votes. He was also a Patriot for life, and that that goes a long way with some Patriot fans for sure. I just try to block out Adam Vinatieri playing for the Colts. I don't know what happened to him from 2006 on, and all of a sudden he retired. But yeah, I'm like you guys. It's just it feels like there should be an order a little bit to things, and Adam Vinatieri made the greatest kick in Super Bowl history. He ran down Herschel Walker. I mean, what more do you want a kicker to do to get him in? But we all love Adam. I mean, it's just I think he's a little bit more special to the later generation Patriot fans that had the terrible times, then saw him kind of solve those terrible times. Because God, if he doesn't make that kick in the snow, I don't know what we're sitting here right now.
I mean, the way. Go ahead, Steve. Sorry.
That kick in the snow to tie the game was the most amazing kick I think I've ever seen.
100%.
Everybody. I mean, Perillo tells the story that they were standing on the field because they had to walk down. They were at the opposite end. They couldn't even see the other. They had to just listen to the screams to know that it actually went in because the snow was so thick you couldn't see the other end of the field.
One of my best moments as a Patriots fan was watching that game with my dad. I'm in Arizona now, but I was in Arizona at the time. But my whole family's from the East Coast, and we grew up in Boston and everything. And just him and the kick goes in, and him and I were just grabbing each other and just jumping up and down. It was just like an iconic moment. It was incredible. Let me ask one question real quick, and then I'll go to the guys to kind of close out the show. Looking ahead to training camp, what's the most interesting camp battle? And I don't want to skew your thought on it, but mine might be left guard.
That's what I was probably going to say. Yeah.
Really?
No, I mean, I'm kind of with you. It's just, I mean, it's kind of wide open. I would say that's immediately when you asked the question where my brain went to. I mean, we could maybe say slot corner a little bit. Like, how do they divvy that up? But that's almost more of like a game day role thing. It's not like I expect. So I think left guard. I mean, with is Cole Strange a center now? Do they like that? we're going back to the Josh offense now. Cole Strange never played under Josh. How does he feel? I mean, he's a super athletic guy.
Yep.
There's an appeal
Say
to
so.
Cole Strange's athleticism next to Will Campbell's athleticism. I mean, those two guys can both run with the best of them. But, you know, Wes Schweitzer gives you like a veteran level. But, I mean, I think in a perfect world, like you said, City or Layden Robinson, those two guys. I mean, there's really 4 guys, I would say, for that one spot. And you got to hope that somebody emerges. But I said it on PU, I think it was last week. I just all of a sudden, I'm like, am I crazy to think that Cole Strange, who was a first-round pick 3 years ago, could maybe just start at left guard this year? Like, is that crazy to me? Because so many people have ruled him out, and, you know, I know he's like a punchline because they drafted him where they drafted him and all that, yada, yada, yada. But, like, at the end of the day, the guy's been in the league for a few years. He's super athletic. Like, why can't he just play freaking left guard, you know, and maybe bring some athleticism and maybe be a plus player? I don't know. That's why I feel like I'm crazy, because it's just everyone's like, oh, my God, we drafted. But, you know, I don't know how it's all going to play out. And I would also throw Jared Wilson in that mix too. Really enjoyed hearing from him at the podium last Friday. And, you know, he, like all the other rookies, just sound like really smart, well-spoken guys who are passionate about football. And, you know, just the kind of guys that you just like, man, these guys are fun. You just like to hang out and chat with them. You know, those are kind of the vibe you get from just about everybody they brought in here, whether it was free agents or rookies.
Well, I was secretly rooting for Jake Andrews because he's a friend of mine.
Tough one. I was thinking of you. Yeah.
No, I know. We were talking about it, but he seems like he's happy, and I wasn't surprised that a previous regime that drafted him then went to someone who used to work for the previous regime down in Houston with Nick Caserio. So, but anyways, Steve, over to you, and then Mike, why don't you ask the last question, and then you can close out the show.
Sounds good.
All right. So we're only going off of, you know, these short videos that we've seen. However, I think that it looks like Stefon Diggs is way ahead of where he probably was, you know, a couple of months ago. And do you think it's a realistic scenario where he could join the team at the beginning of training camp?
I still don't just yet. I mean, I know the workout videos look really promising. I just know when he initially, you know, had came in, that the general feeling was like, no, this is a full ACL. Like, he's not on magic beans or anything that's going to get him out of schedule. I think those things are a little hard though. You know, when you see these training videos and you see guys rehabbing and yeah, he looks good, but is he ready to, I mean, you guys know, I mean, Welker in 2009, I mean, he got hurt in the last game of the season and he was able to do it, come back in 10. And, you know, I guess I've been doing this long enough that ACL guys, you always just feel like they're going to have 1 year where it's going to take them a little bit of time to get back. And so I'm not in a rush to like make that year hard as possible for him. I want to try to ease that year for him and, you know, not try to have him have setbacks or anything like that. But look, I think you guys might agree, like, just seeing him in those videos, knowing that he's up here, he's around, he's standing with Drake, he's invested, he's already building that camaraderie, and he's getting on board with the kind of program that they're setting up here. I think that's, you know, super encouraging. I just personally, I would play it slow. I'd give some of these younger guys a chance. They've got such a crowded wide receiver room. Maybe you just start Diggs on PUP, and it allows guys like Baker, Polk, Williams, etc., you know, to make the most of their chances. I don't know how it's going to look at the end of camp, but you know, I don't want to discard any of these rookie wide receivers until you really know for sure. And I don't think, you know, you can do that yet with Polk and Baker. I still have belief in Polk that he can be a good piece to this receiving core.
I agree. Mike, over to you.
Yeah, Mike, I just, first of all, I want to thank you for taking the time out to join us here today. Always a wealth of knowledge, and we appreciate it very much. Pulling on the wisdom and counsel that I want you to be able to share with our listeners here. When you look at this roster from top to bottom, whether it be rookies, whether it be new additions, guys that are still on this roster, is there a player or even a couple of players that you're looking at, players that are flying under the radar right now that could end up having a major impact when we look at training camp time? We know we always have training camp darlings and guys that emerge kind of out of nowhere sometimes. Is there anybody that you've got your eye on right now that you think could turn some heads when this team takes the field in July?
All right, I'm going to answer that one and saying I hope It's Keon White. I hope it's Keon White. I've been hard on Keon White. Admittedly, like I think he's a great interior pass rusher. I need to see more from him, more traditional defensive end. What's he going to do? I keep bringing up concerns about the edge position, and I'm often reminded by, people who call in like, well, you're forgetting about Keon White. And I'm like, yes and no. Like, so there's a lot to like about him, but I also I think you've seen enough now to know that, like, and he said it himself of, I struggle against tackles a little bit, that length, like he's all over guard. So I would just say that it would be a huge coup if he comes out and he looks like he fits into this defense and he's got a position, because to be totally honest with you right now, I don't see exactly how he kind of fits. Like he's, and maybe he's in that world of Harold Landry and, able to play on the edge a little bit and run some stunts and get to the quarterback. Not sure he's ever going to be a guy who's going to beat anybody around the edge, but he's just one player I'm really intrigued to watch. And the other part of it, I'd say, and I don't know if I'm actually answering your question, but just the safety position. How does it play out? Do they still want to play, a couple big safeties in the box, or Duggar and Peppers going to play more around the line of the scrimmage? Is that why they drafted, Craig Woodson to play on the back end, or is he just another, piece flame on the fire? I guess I'm wondering about Marty Mappo too. How does he fit in? Where does he fit? So I guess my question, my things are more like guys who are under the radar that I think could do it, but there's nobody really, I guess, that's jumping to the top of mind right now. Like, I guess I'll throw one more at you. I think Robert Spillane. I just think he's under the radar. I think he's going to play a ton. I don't think he's going to come off the field. People have been yelling forever, and I've been among them, for mobile middle linebackers. They wanted to get a sideline to sideline guy. I think Robert Spillane, has a little bit of that Brewski savviness to him in the middle of the field. He's able to make plays. So I'm really excited just to see him and to see how the defense really transforms with all these players that are, really aggressive, and then they're going to play through the whistle and play hard. They keep telling us that. So it should be exciting for people like me who like the defense, and of course, offense, baby. You got to get Drake going.
I'm so glad that you mentioned Robert Spillane as well. Our mutual friend.
I worked among it.
Absolutely. Our mutual friend, Kent Myers, who covers the Las Vegas Raiders for ESPN Las Vegas out there, is someone I know very well, and we chat often. And the first reaction that I got from people that would send me DMs or whatnot when Spillane signed with the Patriots was from our boy Q, and he said, "You guys just got the Pied Piper," and that was something that really kind of like stuck with me, because he is someone that I think is going to take a lot of teammates on his back and just really help to incorporate this new vision, this new enthusiasm, this new era in New England. He's a leader among men, and I think that's so important for what this team needs, especially with it being completely reimaged now, and now in Mike Vrabel's image. Spillane just seems like the perfect guy on the field to carry that out. So I'm going to be looking for him. I'm going to be looking for the safeties as well. I think you make a very interesting point, because that position does lend itself into maybe a player or two emerging from the shadows and being a breakout star in training camp. So I'll have my eyes open on both. Great stuff.
Yeah. Spillane, on Spillane, it's a little bit of that Vrabel thing, where it's a player who's been around a little bit. They know what it's like to be on the bottom of the roster and for being scrapping, just to have a job or a chance to play. And now, for him to get a little bit of stability, a little bit of a reward with a 3-year deal in a team that, really went out and targeted him. And, it just seems like he's going to give his all to this organization. And we already know he gave his all to the Raiders and the Steelers and the Titans. We see how he plays, so right. Excited to see him get out there.
Just like you have a type with your two mics are better than one. What's up, Chris?
Two for the price of one, Chris.
Deuce, just like you have a type, which is the front seven. Vrabel obviously has a type with the guys that he's brought in, and I'm pretty sure Spillane, if I'm not mistaken, so don't hold me to it 100%, but I'm pretty sure he's one of 2 players in the NFL over the last 2 years that have compiled 300 plus tackles. So I mean, he's definitely active. I think people will really be happy with him overall.
He's got that face. He's got a dark face shield too.
He's
gonna wear too. I mean, it's just easy to love, easy to get excited if you're a linebacker guy. He seems linebacker through and through. So yeah. It's exciting.
I get it. Mike, do you want to
with his hair on fire?
Right.
100%. Mike, do you want to close this up?
Yeah, it'd be my honor. Listen, once again, we want to thank our guest today, Mike Dussault. Folks, if you're not following him, you don't know anything about Patriots football. No, I only kid yourself. But no, seriously, Mike is a legend in this area, and for good reason. Since 2010, one of the best, most notable, and well-respected guys on the Patriots beat anywhere. The 28-3 shirts, the Pats propaganda, the Belichick hoodie database, and especially now the great work that he does for Patriots.com and Patriots Unfiltered. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. We always appreciate your wisdom and counsel. Folks, we appreciate all of you taking time out and making Patriots No Huddle a part of your Patriots coverage. Continue to do so. Sign up. Sorry, folks, my screen cut up for a minute over there. I thought I had lost everybody. However, definitely make sure to sign up, subscribe, because we definitely would be honored by your support. Do so on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and, of course, on YouTube. On behalf of my good friend, Steve Balistrieri, Derek Havens, and, of course, Mike Dussault, I'm Mike Debate, reminding all of you to stay safe, to stay well, to be the change you wish to see in the world. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you back here again next time on Patriots No Huddle.